almost here. The New York primary tomorrow, and for the first time in decades, New York's actually in play, and it will play a big role in who's up, who's down, and how it will all go down from here. We are all over it tonight. Then the Trump factor. How many delegates can the Donald take in New York, and will that enable him to take enough of them before the convention? Also, our conversation with legendary singer and songwriter Carole King, and she's here singing the praises of Hillary Clinton. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Trust me, Carole King, she's worth it. It was a fantastic conversation. That coming up a little bit later in the program. But first, we're going to talk nuts and bolts with the primary day, literally less than 24 hours out. The primaries tomorrow, as mentioned, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton looking strong heading into the pivotal day. Trump, he's been holding a more than 30-point lead for months here. And John Kasich, he's polling second, to give you an idea how Ted Cruz is doing in New York. Hillary Clinton maintaining a solid double-digit lead, but it has shrunk over the past few months. Now, New York, as you'd imagine, is a big state with a lot at stake. 95 Republican delegates up for grabs, 291 on the Democratic side, and they will be given out proportionally. The polls, they open at 6 a.m., they close at 9 p.m., and they're closed primaries, so that means people can only vote in their own party's contest. And by the way, we will, in addition to joining you as always at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, we'll also have a special broadcast at 9 p.m. tomorrow evening. We'll give you all the results as they come in, and at least if it holds to form, we'll know in the 9 o'clock hour who the winners and losers will be tomorrow evening. All right, let's bring in our panel to discuss the big day. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Nan Hayworth, former Republican congresswoman from New York. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. And I'll start with you, Andrew, in terms of the math here for tomorrow, without getting too bogged down into how it's proportionally allotted and all the rest. From a macro standpoint, if Trump's not the big winner tomorrow and Hillary's not the big winner tomorrow, that will reset the conversation completely.
And we'll get into some of the specifics on Trump in the next segment. But yeah, it all depends on what your definition of big winner is.
Right.
Winning outright obviously plays a large role in it. For Trump, the focus is going to be more on the delegate haul, how many delegates he's able to win in New York tomorrow. For Clinton and Sanders, the difference might be the numbers. If it's inside 10 points, will people look at that as something of a victory for Bernie Sanders? If she gets into double-digit win, what kind of momentum does this bleed for the next round of primaries, which are all in the mid-Atlantic states in just a little bit? So it's going to be how each one's viewed a little bit differently.
How do you view expectations, Nan, in terms of from each party? On the Republican side, everybody's heard that Trump's going to crush tomorrow. In fact, on the Republican side, only Trump is going to be in New York here for election night. Already, Cruz has moved on, and Kasich also to the next state. And conversely, on the Democratic side, Hillary's here, and Sanders will be. I'll get to the Democrats in a second, Don. But on the Republican side, is the top line, obviously, this is about delegates and delegate math. But what constitutes a huge win for Trump tomorrow? Even if he wins by 30 points here overall or something approaching it, from the delegate split here, what do you think the narrative is? Huge night for Trump versus partial win.
I think people are probably going to look at it two different ways, and one will be just the percent of the vote he wins across the state, because obviously that is sort of, it's in the state of New York, it's probably going to go blue against better judgment, but blue in November. But people are going to look at how big he wins. I think he will win. But of course, we all know that this goes congressional district by congressional district. So how many delegates he wins helps to determine the excitement toward a contested convention. And Senator Cruz is probably the cleverest at maneuvering within the process. So I have a feeling he may do better congressional district by district than Senator Kasich does, just because Ted Cruz has been doing
it's interesting, and Andrew's got the math. I don't want to step on the lead for the next segment when we talk about this, but if Trump clears the deck tomorrow, which is conceivable, I think he's
going to win the majority of the delegates.
He's on the path here if you follow the math to the convention, which surprised me a little bit, but we'll get into that. What does it tell you, Dom, that Sanders won't be in New York tomorrow? And we've heard competing narratives from the Sanders campaign. At the beginning, it was New York's a must-win. Then they kind of backed that off, saying, well, it's not going to end it or not. But What does it tell you they're not in New York tomorrow? Anything?
You've been in this game a long time. You know exactly what that means. That means sayonara. I'm not going to win in New York, so I don't want the embarrassment of being on stage and have to deliver a concession speech while Hillary Clinton is declaring massive victory. The man ran a great race.
Wait, do me a favor. Pull the curtain back for a little bit
Okay.
for the folks when they say, well, how do you know, Don? Because you go to the Sanders rally. There's one this weekend. There are 30,000 people,
Yeah.
right? And the
that-
enthusiasm.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And the enthusiasm gap that you see certainly at the Clinton rallies versus Sanders rallies. And also, Dominic, the idea that, you know, he's on a momentum shift. He's picking up here in terms of how he's done in recent states. How comfortable are the people who are breaking down the numbers at this point, less than 24 hours out? Who's going to win and lose enough that Sanders isn't sticking around to tomorrow?
It really is this simple. It's not about one voting block, but Hillary Clinton has done very well with their African American voters. Bernie Sanders has not been able to penetrate her African American support. I mean, she actually showed up at a rap radio station,
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, to do an interview. So that tells you all that you need to know.
To be fair, he did that before.
He
Now,
did
I
do
want to
that
talk
as
about
well.
the black vote a little bit later specifically, but I'm trying to know, you've covered enough campaigns. At this point out, do they know pretty
The pollsters, yes.
They do know
the
who's gonna win.
The campaigns know as well. The fact of the matter is, you're right. The X factor is Bernie Sanders is beloved. But how many of those young people are actually going to vote?
Right.
Well, not only that, but as we know about Trump and about Sanders, they draw a lot from outside the party regulars.
Good point.
And New
That
York
aren't
is a
registered.
closed
Yeah.
primary, which personally I prefer as a Republican. I think you should be registered, and that's one thing I laud about New York. But we have to look and see how much of that is going to transfer into actual votes among party members.
I wouldn't close the book on the Democratic race too early. I wouldn't put it to bed tonight. I mean, I'm going to actually, obviously, we'll wait
Sure.
and see the numbers on both sides tomorrow, but I'm really fascinated to see how the numbers come in because, Bernie Sanders has outperformed his polls in a number of different states, although the last 7 that he's won, all but Wisconsin, have been in
But
caucuses.
play along with me, Andrew.
Yeah.
He wins tomorrow. Hillary wins tomorrow by a comfortable margin. Okay, so it's not a late night. Okay. Does Sanders then pivot because the math is all but impossible? The idea that he's going to convince superdelegates minus some indictment or something else.
Well,
Do we see a pivot in the race?
That's where momentum comes in. If he still thinks he can win the White House, it's all about making the case that I've got the late push, I've got all the energy at this point in the race. Look at how close I came in New York, and then hopefully, from his camp's standpoint, he wins Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Connecticut, and keeps
and
going.
as of
and
now,
keeps
at
going to
least,
the
the
final
polls
run.
show that Hillary's cleaning up
Right.
Pennsylvania, Maryland, all the mid-Atlantic states.
So
yeah.
his argument is a momentum argument, and that I'm the only choice you can go with, and the superdelegates
Yep.
need to swing their votes. In that case, perception really does matter.
Richard, it's over. After tomorrow, I mean, you can put a nail. It's over tonight, to be honest with you. He has run a very good campaign. Perhaps if he would have concentrated and focused the way he has as of late from day one, maybe he would have done better. But it's over. He's an issue campaign, and he's going to stay in this race, hoping that there's an X factor of she's indicted or something bad happens. But he's going to push it to the limit. But trust me, it's over tomorrow. It's over tonight.
And for the general, the implications will be that we will have in the Democratic candidate, and Hillary Clinton, someone who is the ultimate insider, and she's winning this primary race because she is so inside, because she is
But Nan,
commanded.
think about what
such
the outside
big
means on the other side.
establishment money.
The outside for the moment. On the other side, Donald Trump. Okay? And if you're going to go with the establishment, the idea that Ted Cruz, the perception wanted to stay inside, the fight that will happen in Cleveland, the only
Yeah,
way he'll
okay.
become the nominee is if there's a perception here that he's either twisted arms in a rigged system. We're going to get into that. But for me, in a perverse way, no matter what happens, either it's this guy on your screen or it's an insider game that will come out of Cleveland, and somehow Hillary Clinton's not the establishment candidate if you have a backroom perception as to the winner. We're going to talk about that on the other side of this break. Donald Trump, as we've mentioned, up big in the polls. When I say big, we thought, well, nobody can hold a 30-point lead. In every poll, he's actually staying, if not building on that number. But the question is, can he deliver the knockout blow tomorrow? We'll break down the math for you. You may be surprised.